morning, everybody. Thank you, John. Welcome to Beacon. My name is Tuli Patel. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and today I'm wearing black pants, a maroon sweater, a blue scarf, and a black jacket. I won't make you repeat it. We are a liberal religious community, and we gather many times during the week, but primarily on Sundays, to uncover what is of worth. That is what the word worship means. To uncover what is of worth. Comes from the German Worthskrippen. It's wonderful to see you all. Before we begin, I'd love for you all to look around the room and say hi to one another. Maybe find somebody you haven't said hi to before. Thank you all so much. If you're joining us online, thank you all. If you're joining us online, a warm welcome to you as well. And please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. There's also a concurrent chatting channel on our Slack channel, so you can talk to one another there as well. And Denise Sopas, one of our members, is eager to connect with you. So please do introduce yourselves in the chat as well. A few quick announcements before we get started. This Wednesday, that would be January 15th. Yes, 15th, is the first of our young adult gatherings. So if you know somebody between the ages of 18 and 35, I know that's a very broad span, but that is how young adult is defined, is the first of our young adult gatherings led by our membership coordinator, Chris. Chris, what time is the gathering?
Starting at 6:30, going from 6:30 to 8 p.m.
It's going from 6:30 to 8 p.m. So perhaps you know a young adult in your life or among your friends. Please invite them to come to Beacon, 6:30 to 8 p.m. Then next Sunday, January 19th, Martin Luther King weekend, is the City of Summit town-wide Martin Luther King Day events. And you are invited to come to Beacon at 1 o'clock to attend the talk that is hosted by the Beacon Hope and Equity Center, one of our affiliated organizations, called the Fight for Racial Justice in Philanthropy Today. So that's at 1 o'clock. The next day, January 20th, is Inauguration Day. We might as well do this together, right? We might as well do this together. So you are invited to a watch party, which takes place here at 11:30 a.m. We might as well watch it together, right? Where we'll be streaming a prophetic listening session, which will be led by many religious professionals, including the head of our Unitarian Universalist Association, Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt. So you all are invited to come Monday as well. So as I said before, we are a liberal religious community, and we gather with love at the center to uphold the Unitarian Universalist values of justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, generosity. Yes, I got them all. I got them all. And every service, when we sit down to talk about each service and design the service and the flow of the service, we ask ourselves, which you value are we diving into a little bit deeper today? And today we are looking deeper at pluralism. So if your mind goes off on a tangent and wants to explore generosity, that will be another Sunday. Today is pluralism. But for now, I invite you to take a deep breath in and bring yourself fully to the sacred hour of worship together. Thank you.
Good morning, Beacon. My name is Rachel Radzewski. I am a middle-aged white woman, short brown hair, purple turtleneck shirt, and I use the pronouns she and her. With humility and courage, born of our history, we are called as Unitarian Universalists to build the beloved community where all souls are welcome as blessings, and the human family lives whole and reconciled. With this vision in our hearts and minds, we light our chalice.
Iwama. I'm the director of music ministry. I'm here with John O'Neill, who's playing piano, and we're going to start with hymn number 1023. That is in the teal-colored paperback hymnal. And I'd like to invite Kathy Menendez and Norm Miller to help sing, leading the song, because we're going to be doing it as a round. But first, we'll sing it together, meaning unison, as we learn this song, Building Bridges. It goes like this. Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. That was so good. Now we'll do it as a round, and Kathy's side of the room will start it, and then Norm's side of the room will come in a little bit later, like this. Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you between our divisions. With all of our visions and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you between our divisions. I reach out to voices and reach out to visions. With friends we could make such sweet harmony. Friends, we should make such sweet harmony. Friends, we could make such sweet harmony. What a beautiful sound. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Norm. Thank you, Nisa. Thank you, John. So our Time for All Ages is adapted from the story Many Paths to God by Mary Ann Moore. And it goes like this. Once upon a time, 3 travelers from very different lands met at the base of a mountain. The travelers had been told that if they climbed the mountain, they would find the spirit of life at the top. There were many paths to the top of the mountain, and each traveler was told which path they should take. The travelers met at the bottom of the mountain and told each other of their plans. The first traveler said, I am going to find the spirit of life. I've been told that of all these paths up the mountain, the right path is that one, the one that I'm going to take, the flowery meadow path. If I follow it, I am sure to find the great mother of all. Traveler 2. That's interesting. I've been told that the right path to take is the steep cliffside path over there. And if I follow it, I will find the great Father in heaven. Third traveler. Y'all are very strange. Because I've been told that even though there are many different paths, that the right path is the wide river valley path. And if I follow it, at the top, I will find the Great Spirit in all things. The travelers were surprised to hear about the other paths because they were sure that the path they had been told to follow was the only right one. They even tried to convince the others to switch over to their path. I'm sure mine is the right one, said the first. Nope, mine is, said the second. Don't you think it would be best for you all to come with me, argued the third. No one would change and veer from their path. Each was sure that theirs was the right one. So, bidding each other goodbye, they began their journeys to the top. As they started out, each was singing a song of praise to what they thought as the spirit of life. Imagine 3 different songs going at the same time. It's a little cacophonous, right? And they could hear the different sounds, and they thought that the other song sounded strange. But off they went on their chosen paths, through the flowery meadow, up along the cliffway, and along the riverway. They were soon traveling alone, and they could no longer hear the song of any of the others. Sometimes climbing up the mountain was easy, and sometimes it was hard. Finally, each traveler neared the top of the mountain. They began to hear the other travelers' songs once again, and they realized how beautiful they were. So it didn't sound like a cacophony anymore, it sounded like a melody. All three came to the top within minutes of each other. They stopped and eagerly looked around. "Oh, great Mother of all, I have found you," said the first. "Oh, great Father in heaven, I have found you," said the second. "Oh, great Spirit in all things, here you are," said the third. But all of them were calling out and seeing the same thing, the same Spirit of life. Then they realized that though each had been called by a different name and had taken a different path, they were all searching for the same thing. They listened a little bit deeper, and what they heard sounded a little like this.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Menendez. My pronouns are she, her. And for those of you who would appreciate some visual cues, I'm a shorter, older, white woman with light skin and blonde hair. And today I'm wearing a turquoise blue sweater and a burgundy scarf, which indicates I'm a member of the chaplain team here at Beacon. As chaplains, we extend the spiritual care of our community by offering intentional compassion through presence and listening. If you'd like to speak to a chaplain, talk to me or one of the worship leaders after the service. Chaplains also facilitate our weekly ritual of candle lighting, and together we light candles of joy, sorrow, and gratitude. This morning, we light a candle of care and healing for Barbara Goldberg, who broke her upper arm during a recent fall. We wish her a steady and complete recovery. A candle of sorrow for the victims, both human and animal, of the devastating fires in Los Angeles. A candle of compassion and support for all the peoples around the globe facing threats from foreign governments who do not respect their sovereignty as a people. A candle of gratitude for the life and memory of President Jimmy Carter, whose funeral was just this Thursday. After his years in office, he became a model of active yet humble public service. For this and for so much more, we invite you to come forward now and light a candle here in the sanctuary, at home, or wherever you may be.
All right, we're going to learn a new hymn, or maybe it'll just be a refresher on something you knew from before. It's from the beginning of the hymnal, number 4. And as we are doing a service today about pluralism, we're also going to reflect that in the music. And this particular tune is a transcendentalist text. It's very connected to how nature is part of us. So I'm going to just sing it line by line so that you can get used to the tune. I brought my spirit to the sea. Why don't you try that? I brought my spirit to the sea. The next one is, I stood upon the shore. I stood upon the shore. I gazed upon infinity. I gazed upon infinity. I heard the waters roar. I heard the waters roar. So we go through this beautiful text. I hope that you enjoy it as much as I do. I brought my spirit to the sea. I stood upon the shore. I gazed upon infinity. I heard the waters roar. And then there came a sense of peace. Some whisper calmed my soul. Some ancient ministry of stars had made my spirit whole. I brought my spirit to the trees that loomed against the sky. I touched each wandering, careless breeze to know if God was nigh. And then I felt an inner flame that fiercely burned my tears. Upright I rose from bended knee to meet the asking years.
Thank you, Misa. All right, I'm more awake for this 11 a.m. service. So good morning, Beacon. Thank you. I am Pablo Vasquez, your intern minister. I'm always happy to be here. I have long, curly, brownish black hair, caramel complexion, of average height, with wearing all black with, sadly, some candle wax stains. And I go by any pronoun. And now I will lead you in a guided meditation. So begin by finding yourself in a comfortable position within your chairs, whether for some of you that is sitting, crossing legs, standing, what have you. And gently close your eyes and take a deep breath in. And now hold it for a moment, then exhale, releasing any tension. Continue breathing deeply once more. And out. And then breathe steadily now, allowing each breath to relax you more deeply. As you settle into this space, bring awareness to your present moment. Let go of any distractions or worries, and close your eyes or focus them somewhere in the room. Feel your body grounded, supported, and at ease. With each breath, you are more present, more connected to the world around you and your beloved community. Imagine a warm, golden light surrounding you, a light that represents the wisdom and truth that flows through all spiritual and ethical traditions. See this light embracing you with love, openness, and understanding. Know that this light is not confined to any one faith, but is shared by all who seek truth, compassion, and peace. As you sit in this light, reflect on the beauty of the many paths that lead to spiritual and ethical truth. Imagine the diversity of beliefs, each one a unique expression of the divine and of the human self, each one with its own teachings, rituals, and ways of knowing. Imagine that light now spreading in a multiplicity of directions, representing each of these wonderful paths. Know that all these paths, though different, are interconnected. Each tradition holds wisdom. Each belief system brings value to the human experience. Now, consider how important it is to honor and protect this diversity. Reflect on how interfaith dialogue and action, whether through conversation, service, or shared compassion, helps bridge gaps between communities and sometimes even within ourselves. Think of the strength that comes when people of different faiths and ideas come together to defend the dignity of all people and work for justice, peace, and love. In this moment, commit to being a defender of spiritual diversity. Let your heart open to embracing the differences in belief and practice, knowing that each person's journey is sacred. With compassion, stand up for the freedom of belief, for the rights of others to explore their spiritual paths without fear of judgment or violence. Feel the courage within you to engage in interfaith work with humility, respect, and love. Let that light that surrounds you go within you and spread it out further and further and further, connecting with all the other lights. Now, take a few quick moments to sit quietly in this space of reflection, listening to your breath and imagining that light as well. Feel gratitude for the wisdom of all traditions and for the opportunity to learn from others. And now, with a deep breath, slowly bring awareness to your body. Breathe in and breathe out. And feel grounded and renewed. When you're ready, open your eyes and carry with you always, now and forever, the peace and commitment to honoring spiritual and ethical diversity in all that you do. Thank you.
There's an old gospel song called, "Oh, I Woke Up This Morning with My Mind Stayed on Jesus." And in the 1960s, a reverend who was a freedom writer and was imprisoned in Mississippi adapted the lyrics to say, "Oh, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom." And that's how we're going to start our song this morning. So I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join. Oh, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Can't hate your neighbor with your mind. Stayed on freedom. Can't hate your neighbor with your mind. Stayed on freedom. Can't
Wonderful. Now I'd like to welcome Chris Gordon to provide beautiful testimony.
Thanks, Pablo. My name is Chris Gordon. I'm a white woman, pronouns she, her, about 5.5 feet tall with brown hair and glasses, and today I'm wearing a gray sweater. Today I'd like to share with you my Beacon journey and why I've stayed here for almost 20 years. When I retired about 4 years ago, I told my family and friends that I wanted to spend my time on things that were meaningful to me. Making money for the shareholders had its place, but it was time to move on. So I have focused on my college, my grandchildren, and Beacon. My Beacon story started when my husband David and I moved from Chicago to New Jersey in 2005. We were looking for a community that shared our values. We visited Beacon on a house hunting trip, and we were drawn into this community through its warmth and energy. And we've been here ever since. In 2008, Reverend Emily Bogus called me and asked me if I would be interested in leading our biggest fundraiser, which we then called the services auction. And she called me on my vacation at the Outer Banks, and I was very relaxed, so I said yes. Saying yes to something that big while I was juggling my family and a busy job was not a given. So I guess I surprised myself. But I'm really glad I did, because saying yes led to a wonderful exploration that's been both meaningful and joyful for me. After the fundraiser, I said yes to serving on the Board of Trustees, and I said yes to the Ministerial Search Committee, and now I'm on the nominating committee, and I'm meeting even more amazing people at Beacon. And as I reflect on what the meaningful experience has been for me here, these things stand out. Friendships. I've gotten to know so many people over coffee, through social events, and serving together. The services on Sundays, and inevitably I'm crying in the sanctuary over something that touched me. Connecting with the UU movement. I have worked with our amazing ministers, and I've gotten to know people across the UUA movement and clergy from other congregations. It's been very rewarding. I've gotten involved in the wider world in a way that I may not have otherwise. One of the highlights for me was going to the Women's March in 2017 with a group from Beacon. And then finally, I've accepted the love of this community in my life. You all welcomed my daughter, you welcomed my grandchildren, and you supported my father-in-law in his final years, and that really is meaningful to me. As we start the new year, I'm going to continue to say yes to this community, and I hope you'll join me, and I hope that it'll give your life as much meaning as it has mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And now our morning's offering will be most gratefully received.
Last week, we did a service that was Music of Broadway, and I know that it really resonated with many people. I would say that musical theater is one way that we can just understand the world, and John O'Neill just was an incredible musical presence for that. So I want to say thank you again for all that. And he's doing an afternoon music concert in just a few weeks, and it's going to be about his process of creativity and how he has gone from just starting out with piano to becoming a Broadway music director, and with 16 original songs all about the trials and tribulations and triumphs. So I hope that you will join us. But for our offering today, he's going to be playing a piece called Solace by Scott Joplin. This is a ragtime piece. And ragtime was a genre of music that arose from enslaved people in the South. It's interesting because the subtitle of this piece, as Joplin wrote it, was A Mexican Serenade. But it's actually not a Mexican serenade as we would know it. However, if you listen, in the left hand, in parts of the piece, you might hear a habanera or a tango. So we'll hear those, musical interfaith kind of gestures as we go along.
Love ragtime, love Joplin, so thank you very much. Thank you. All right, let's get to it. Let me see where to start first. Let me make sure this thing is on. Yes? All right, great. All right, so our theme this month is stories. And all the services are themed around this very concept. Now, as many of you know, I'm a bit of an intellectually minded person, and I love history. It was, growing up, I was a big and voracious reader. Whether it was history or science fiction, I was either thinking about the past or imagining the future. No wonder I'm a Unitarian Universalist, right? But one of the things that I always like to say about history is that history is a tapestry of stories. Each thread is a human life, a human experience, a human belief interwoven into this beautiful tapestry, into this grand quilt that we'll eventually create. And that is history to me. Now, before I get started, let's see a little bit of something about the threads that exist in this very space. Now, how many of you identify solely as a Unitarian Universalist? No other religious belief, nothing? Raise your hand. That's more than the first service. That's fascinating. Now, how many of you identify along with Unitarian Universalism, maybe with one or two or more different beliefs? Raise your hand. Very good, very good. Now, I find this very fascinating, simply because we're one of the few spiritual spaces where I can ask that question, right? And so that's very much part of our tapestry. Now, what I'm going to lead you on is through analyzing some of the big threads, some of the big images that make this beautiful quilt of ours of Unitarian Universalism, to teach us a little lesson on pluralism, one of our values, and particularly the importance of interfaith work. To start with, I want to talk about the concept of ancestors. Now, many times we tend to think of our ancestors as sort of just our blood ancestors. We go out, we do our DNA tests, and we say, I'm 40% this, I'm 10% that. Oh, you know, I'm descended from great Vikings or what have you. Someone in the first service was even telling me about how they figured out what their doggy's DNA was, which, you know, very cool, very interesting. But ancestors go beyond even just who we're physically descended with. We have cultural ancestors, we have movement ancestors, we have spiritual ancestors. And part of that is I want to concentrate on our spiritual ancestors, the people who built and fought and even in some cases died for who we are today and why we're able to sit in this room and raise our hands as we did and share with each other our beliefs and our values, even if they differ. Let's start with one of my favorites in our narrative, which is the transcendentalists. Now, who here is familiar with the transcendentalists? See, that's not everyone. And I'm very glad for that, because then I could, you know, if it was everyone, I'd just skip to the next one. But the transcendentalists, of course, out in New England, the Boston, Providence sort of area, out there, you know, exploring and everything, they spent a lot of time thinking. Imagine having that privilege, right? But aside from that privilege, they didn't just think about the different radical ideas that were popping up in our new and burgeoning American society and mindset. They also spent their time thinking and engaging with Eastern thought. In fact, we tend to associate the transcendentalists sometimes with Hindu thought or Buddhist thought, but they went even beyond that. They engaged even with one of my own core faith beliefs, which is Zoroastrianism, which was almost unknown at the time. So that makes it very fascinating that they were even willing to reach out that far. Now, most people don't know how they actually came into contact. A whole bunch of, say, middle and upper class, you know, pretend bumpkins who were in the middle of the forest, by the sides of lakes, spending their time writing poetry and thinking and great prose and everything, thinking about the overspirit and whatnot. How'd they get access to all of this? Well, Boston was a great trade port at the time, and it had one direct connection to Bombay. And as Emerson put it, he had sold his own bed just so he could get a copy of the Upanishads. And the Transcendentalists were actually known and actually ridiculed in local newspapers at the time for selling their possessions for religious texts, for religious pamphlets, for even just to sit at the feet of captains and tradesmen and whatever that were showing up at the Boston Providence ports. And that must have seemed weird to people at the time, right? Imagine showing up with your handcrafted drawer set and giving that away for a pamphlet of 3 pages. But they were willing to do that. That was interfaith work of their time, where they were even to sacrifice their own possessions for the sake of understanding someone else. And not just understanding someone else, but bringing in that understanding and making it core to who they are and to their beliefs. And they didn't just engage with Eastern thought, mind you. They also engaged with various different forms of Christianity, and in fact, engaged with a eccentric yet influential mystic known as Emanuel Swedenborg. Who's familiar with Emanuel Swedenborg? Oh, that'll be more fun to explain, because that's no one in this room, except for one shaky hand. So I happen to know a lot about Emanuel Swedenborg simply because one of my best friends back in the East Bay is a Swedenborgian minister. So he never shuts up about it. But the fascinating thing, Emanuel Swedenborg, as the name implies, came from Sweden, and was a really mystical, eccentric theologian and thinker who became really influential on early American society. 2 of the most famous Swedenborgians we know of are Helen Keller and also Johnny Appleseed, who was a real person, mind you. But Emerson and his ilk were also all very fascinated by Swedenborg. In fact, by one particular system of belief. Swedenborg had this idea of correspondences and divine hieroglyphs, which to them was nature. Nature to them was a message from the divine, that within it was as holy a text as the Bible, as the Torah, as the Upanishads, and what have you. So to them, like we heard in that song earlier, touching the wind, seeing the sea, these sorts of things were interfaith work to them. They were able to engage with nature, with the animals, with all that surrounds us, sometimes that we just completely ignore. I love the cold. I know a bunch of you don't, but I had such love and beauty for being able to see the snowflakes drop just a couple of days ago, because I don't get that experience much. 20 years in Texas and now living in the Bay where the weather is always perfect, sometimes I need it not to be so perfect. But within it, I can see sort of the beauty of our world, and the messages it can give us. To see an entire community blanketed by snow showed a sense of unity, right? And Thoreau and Emerson believed the same things. They said that when they saw the rain come down, when they saw the snow come down, it was as if the divine was telling them, we all are rained upon, we are all snowed upon, we are all interconnected. And to them, nature was a point of interfaith work. And I think that's important to keep in mind for sure. Now let's jump 100-something years to the creation of our own tradition, Unitarian Universalism. Who here knows that story? Raise your hand. Do you know how we became Unitarian Universalists? Yeah, how we combined. Yeah, how we merged. Okay, well, wow, that's very little of you. I'm talking to the religious education person later then. But Unitarians, Christians who believed in the unity of all things, Universalists, Christians who believed that all were saved and thus all were within grace and love, had worked together for almost 100 years before even merging. Our very merger, our creation of our own particularly unique tradition is built on 100+ years of interfaith work, on which either side was not just working with each other, but working for tolerance, for inclusion, for the virtue of showing love and understanding to people and traditions that they themselves could not understand. Because not only were we protected that way, but also all others could be encouraged to be free and protected and thus believe as they believed. But after 100 years, we came together. And as one of those founders said, we built beloved community on all of this work, on this work of interfaith understanding. And I think we need to carry that heritage forward, for sure. And I do think that a few decades later, well, not a few decades, within the same decade even, we began the civil rights movement. And I don't know how many of you are aware. How many of you know that some of the big martyrs of the civil rights movement were themselves Unitarian Universalists? Good. I'm glad at least half of you know that. But yes, I want to share some stories, actually, of two of the most impactful of these martyrs, who were people who viewed our values and, like so many of us, saw enrichment in them, but unlike too many of us, they were willing to put their lives on the line for those values. While so many of us remain comfortable in our homes, in our halls, in our churches, and are sometimes unwilling to go out and do the same. First up is James Reeb, one of the great martyrs of Unitarian Universalism, who Dr. King himself called an attorney for the defense of the innocent in the court of world opinion. Imagine receiving such a compliment from Dr. King. Now, he was murdered in Selma, martyred, to be more exact, because not just of his work for racial justice and social equality, but because he also worked with Quakers, Baptists, Jews, Catholics, Muslims, and more, at a time when people did not actually want to talk to one another much, did not actually want to hear each other's beliefs. In between services, I was telling one of my friends about what I was preaching about, and he said, oh, my grandma has this little pamphlet that said on the cover, as long as you go to church, I don't care. And that was definitely a time of that. We just did not talk to each other as long as someone was in the pews, right? And that's not good. James Reeb saw that something needed to be done, and as a Unitarian Universalist minister, went out and did it. But it isn't just ministers. We have lay martyrs too, and one of the most important lay martyrs is Viola Liuzzo. She was so shaken by Reeb's death that she literally gave up everything and went down to Selma and did the same thing as James Reeb, talked and connected all various communities together, understood them, sat down with them, listened to their grief, their beliefs, their understandings, and what have you, and was murdered by basically the same people who would rather we not work together or talk to each other, and would rather we not come closer together so that within our divisions, they could sow disharmony, and they could themselves enrich only themselves, and themselves also profit. And one of the things that is not mentioned in those stories often is it wasn't just the Ku Klux Klan or these other dark forces that sometimes threaten our values of inclusion and love and brotherhood, but it was also our own government. In each of these cases, there was an FBI informant who was more than happy to fire a gun at James Reeb and at Viola Liuzzo. So we must keep that in mind when we continue our fights, our work. And when we've talked about these martyrs, I want you to bring their lives and their experiences within your own understanding. Remember how I was talking about that light that expands from each of us, all the different paths? Bring their lights in within you and let them shine within you. And remember that lesson that there were Unitarian Universalists who didn't just come every Sunday to listen to an aspiring intern minister preach, but rather went out, and I'm not saying don't come every Sunday, I'd be out of a job, but they themselves went out and stood side by side with Dr. King. I've heard so many Unitarian Universalists, I marched with Dr. King, I did that, et cetera, like that. And when I tell them about these martyrs, it's the first time they've ever heard about them. And so now is the time to bring them into our memory, for sure. But I also want to say something harsh. I feel like we've let them down. We've let down so many of our spiritual ancestors, and this is a sad, sad fact. I mean, one of the things that really disheartens me, and we think too often of ourselves and not of the other. We are too comfortable within our spaces. Sometimes we sit in these churches or in our homes, which I love the term for a home that I heard not too long ago, which is a castle of love, and we do not bring down that drawbridge into that castle of love. We see horrors upon horrors from our TV sets. We hear of genocides. We hear of thefts from the working people, from the common person. We hear of the state of healthcare in this country, and we think thoughts and prayers. Or we think, maybe I'll give like $1 or $2 when it comes to the offertory, or maybe, I won't say a single thing. I'll just meditate on it and bring myself peace in this chaos and situation. But the reality is we have to be more like James Reeb, We have to be more like these martyrs. We need to be more like the transcendentalists, like Viola Liuzzo. We need to be more like the very people that merged together and formed this faith, who were more than willing to go out and grab their thoughts and words and turn it into action. And the reality of things is that a lot of the time we don't. Sometimes I like remembering my times in seminary, when every Unitarian Universalist around me had a heart on fire and was more than willing to be one step away from leaving the faith if they didn't do enough, you know. I like that sort of fiery spirit. Of course, they mostly went on to become ministers or are still on the path as I am. But nonetheless, I remember one statement that stood out to me is, sometimes we become most comfortable in our spaces. We become too comfortable as just Unitarian Universalists. We forget sometimes that the people sitting next to us may not consider themselves even Unitarian Universalists, or may consider themselves UUs and plus and more. And in that pluralism, we find such joy and truth and happiness and inspiration to go out and do something that shakes the foundations of our lives and our societies. And I think we should do more of that. We cannot become, as one of my fellow seminarians would say, like so many of the mainline Protestant denominations that just sit there, give money to make sure that the really expensive, beautiful, historic church stays as it is. And that money then goes nowhere else. But for us as Unitarians Universalists, we have an advantage. We're a very small community. You know, we don't have that much pull, but we sure pack a punch. And I think we need to continue packing that punch for sure. You know, too many times I'm told, well, there's so very little I can do about it. I've already done my part. I'm already a Unitarian Universalist. Isn't that enough? But the reality is that we can do more. We can always do more. If the bones of Viola Liuzzo fertilize the ground of the American spirit now, then we can walk upon that land and fight for the rights of ourselves and others. And part of that is bringing everyone together. Someone just asked me, it's just like, how do I talk to an evangelical, you know? How do I talk to someone who just doesn't want to talk to me? And I was remembering, you know, there's so many great activists out there who will go out and sit down with a member of the Ku Klux Klan and themselves are black. And, you know, we'll listen and talk and not lie to them or coddle them, but we'll listen and talk. And when they find points of agreement, they'll agree. And one of them, who's a great jazz musician, name escapes me, he has an entire closet of what he calls trophies of love. And it's robes of grand wizards that were handed to him because they engaged in conversation, they engaged in friendship, they engaged in brotherhood, and they engaged in interfaith work as well. And I think we can do the same. We can definitely engage, even just in the small, minor level, we can talk to one another in this community and outside it. Go out, talk to someone else who believes differently than you do, even if you find it a little bit uncomfortable, for sure. And also, some of us in this congregation, we can sometimes give more than we usually do. Whether it's to our beloved community here or out there to all the causes that need our help, especially in these very difficult times that are coming up. If you can reach into your heart, your wallet, or even like the transcendentalists, you know, give something that you hold dear, whether it's like James Reeb, your life, or whether like Emerson, your bed. And go out and use that to not just enrich yourself with the wisdom of others, but to build a community of love and understanding. Because love is at the core of all of our values. But one of our values is that pluralism, not just in these walls, but in the entire world. And part of that pluralism is not just humans. It's also understanding our animal friends and our animal community. And, you know, how much they also suffer from our inability to understand and listen to them. So please, do as we do always at the end of our services here and hold hands with the people out of these walls. Hold hands with them, understand them, work with them. Because in reality, what we can do is we can weave more and more threads into that beloved tapestry of human existence. And the more we try to ignore those other people, the less and less we become closer to finishing that beautiful quilt, you know? Let us finish that tapestry. Let us continue towards that work. Let us add more beautiful threads, whether our own or others. Let us talk to one another. Let us understand one another. Let us hold each other in love. And most importantly, we must be willing to fight even for those that may not be like us. Because you may not have realized it before, but from that show of hands, not everyone in this room believes the same. Now imagine the rest of the world. Thank you.
We're going to end with a song called Where You Go, I Will Go. It's written by Shoshana Jedwab, who is a daughter of a Holocaust survivor. And she wrote this song as a way to express her support for refugees, because it is based on the story of Naomi and Ruth. Ruth, who was a widow and decided to stay with her mother-in-law and go to a new country, where she eventually became the great-grandmother of King David. So I invite you to rise, embody your spirit, and sing this song, Where You Go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. You're divine. You're divine, my divine. You're divine. You're divine, my divine.
Thank you, Misa. Thank you, everyone, for such wonderful music, and what a wonderful service for sure. Thank you for remaining standing. This is probably the first service, I mentioned it to the first one as well, that I didn't have to ask you to stand up again. We're learning. All right, everyone, hold hands as we do in beloved community. Let that light I was talking about earlier shine in between those hands. And let us then give a benediction. May you go out and spread that love and light further, not just in thought and word, but also in action, and bring our beloved community further and further out with pluralism and understanding for each other's different beliefs and ideas and ways of being. Go forth and have a wonderful Sunday. Amen.